Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do another flower in the wildflower series. This time I'm going to do wood cranesbill. It's a sort of a pink flower. I'll show you one that I've already made. This is a partially closed one. Hang on, well, I can get it there. Get that. Hang on, wrong way, that way. And then I've got one that's more open, which is that one there. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the stamens for the centre, because that's the more complicated part. So I'm going to take you down to my board and I'm going to show you the tools I'm going to use to start off with. Right, so the leaf cutters that I'm going to use for it are not botanically correct, so you'll have to forgive me there, but I tried to find a cutter that was sort of a similar sort of shape to the leaves. So this is an ivy cutter that I've got. It comes in a set of 5, I think, in this one, 4 or 5. And then I'm going to use an all-in-one cutter. Now, a lot of people have probably already got these sort of cutters. This one is an Orchard product one, and also PME do one similar. The only thing is with the PME one, it's more open, so you can see more what's going on inside. Couldn't lay my hands on that one, so I'm using this. I'm not sure whether I've got one quite as small as this in the PME ones, but it's not a big flower, so this is the one I'm going to use for this. So I'm going to start off. So you need some fine stamens, and I see where I've put them. I thought I was all ready and I've lost my stamens already. No, they're there. Here we are. So these stamens that I'm using, if you're going to go to a sugarcraft shop or shop online, what you want is the micro stamens, which are the smallest of all the stamens. I don't know whether you can see this or not, but they're absolutely tiny. If I put one on my hand so you can see, hang on, I've got a shadow, I'm just from my thumb, put it that way around, you can see it then. They're absolutely tiny. So what you want of these, you want 3 of these stamens. Right, so we'll just put those to one side and just pop those away. If you haven't got any of those, where's the other stamen I have? You could probably get away with these. These are a bit bigger with a more of a pointed end, but they are a little bit too big really for this particular flower. But if you haven't got the micro ones, you can use them. Nobody's going to judge you on it, because unless they know what the flower looks like, and they probably don't, it won't make any difference, will it? Right, so what you need now also is some light green stem text. Now, in the original instructions I had for this, the first time I learnt how to do these, it said use quarter width tape. Now this is half width tape, so you imagine a quarter width, which is half of that, and you've got to cut that into 5 at the end. That's pushing it, even for me. So what you want is a wire, a 2060 gauge wire. Is that one? No, that's a thicker one, that's the better one. Just bear with me a second. I've got some already cut here on the side, and I've got 2 different sizes there. So what you need to do is, first of all, start off with a long piece at the end left loose. So that wants to go up at an angle like that. So we need to stretch the tape there to find out which is the sticky side, which is that side. So that wants to be left up at the top. So you get your wire right up there, and then start bringing your tape round. Now I'm just going to bring that up, that's it, because I don't want to get that tucked in with the rest of the wire, and then tape all down your wire. So you've got that squared off end left on the end there. Don't know whether you can see that or not. So what you need now is a pair of nail scissors. So if you turn it so that that piece is towards you, and then divide that into 5. So they want to be really thin. Just take your time with it, don't try and rush. I slipped a bit with my hand there. These last 3 are the hardest ones to do. I'm just going to get in a bit closer there because I can't see what I'm doing here. If I just separate these, and that one can be cut into half again. And get those further down, right down, right to the base of that thing. Then you can take off any excess that you don't want. Right, so I'm just going to take that together. I'm just going to take a little bit off the end because I don't want them quite as long as that. Just twizzle that around and then just separate those out. So that's the first part, that's your centre. What you could do at this particular point in time as well, you could colour that before you put your stamens on. You might find it easier doing this way because I actually assembled them before I did this, but for some people might find it's up to you which way you want to do it. But what you're going to do is, I've got some plum on it. This is blackcurrant that I'm using from Edible Art, and just catch the end of those pieces that you've just done there, and then you just separate those out and bring them round a little bit. Now if you want to, you could twist those and make those even thinner. The only trouble is you have to be careful there because it can come off very easily and then you end up starting all over again. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. I'm not going to tempt fate, and I'm just going to put that to one side for a minute. Just get rid of that. Oh, I'll leave that because I'm going to do the stamens as well. Now the stamens want to be darker. So what I'm going to do is, as I've done before, for anybody that's watched my videos before, and for anybody that's new, I'm going to go through this again. I'm going to paint the stamens with some of the colour, and I use the lid as my palette. I think I've got a bit of, no, it's evaporated. I thought I had some in there. Just bear with me a second. I think there's some in that. I don't need a right lot in there, so I'm just gonna see if I can get a drop into that. Right, I'm just going to bring some of that up here. I've got too much in there. I'm just pour some of this onto my kitchen roll to get rid of that. That's it. Then I can just get a piece up here. Wants to be fairly thickish so that it goes onto your stamens properly, because otherwise the white will show through, and we want it to be quite dark on the end. So if you just get 3 of them together like that, and then just paint the ends of your stamens there like that. I hope you can see this. I'm not going out of shot with it, I hope. I'm trying to look up at my camera and see what I'm doing. This is so tiny you might find it difficult to see it, but just go around your stamens. If you get a little bit on the cotton, it doesn't matter so much, but try to keep it at the top. And then if you just turn them over and do the other end. You see, I haven't had to put any more colour on my brush because you don't need a right lot for this because they're only tiny. But I am using a very fine brush here. This is a treble knot. But when you're doing small things you need very fine brushes, but this is a sable brush, so don't get the cheap brushes because the numbers on them don't make any difference whatsoever because they're not as fine as these. These are the sort of brushes that artists use. But just be careful where you buy them because some places are quite expensive of these. I used to sell these for 99p each and I was buying them from the same place as W.H. Smith's, who were selling them for £3 odd. So shop around, and I got them from the same manufacturer as well. Right, so I'll just pop that to one side. I've got my stamens done there, and get rid of that colour. Just leave your lid to let that dry off, and that you can reuse that again then. Don't waste any colour at all. Right, so get back onto the centre. So what I'm going to do now is, again, I'm going to get my light green tape again. I want to find out which side is the sticky side. And start it off about there. So it's probably about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch down. Now I found trying to put all these stamens in together was a bit much, so no, I haven't done enough stamens there. I'm doing it wrong. I need more than that. I need 6 stamens, I think. Yeah, so I need another 3. And oh, there it is, dropped one there, so I've got some more to paint, so if you just bear with me while I just do 3 more. I knew there was a reason why that didn't look very many, and it is a couple of days ago since I did the since I did my Blue Peter bit. Hope everybody had a nice Christmas. I think this is only the second video that I've done since Christmas, so I've been a bit lax really. I haven't been able to do one every week, but I've had a few things on, so it's not been possible. So if I just get those up together and try and do all the bits and pieces all together. You could use a bigger brush than this if you wanted to. It just happens to be the first brush that I got hold of, so rather than messing about. But you need good eyesight to do this. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be, although it's always been pretty bad apparently. Right. So what you need to do is to fold all of your stamens in half. So what you could do is to do that in 2 bundles if you wanted. So if you get 3 of them together and fold them in half. Get it nice and tight at the bottom. If you start your tape off on your wire first and then put the first bunch of stamens in on one side. And twist around with your tape. Whoops. You might have to fiddle about a little bit. These want to be slightly lower than the top of that as well, and that's broken off. Just start that off again. Like I keep saying to people, when things go wrong, you know, it goes wrong for us. You just don't see it in a lot of videos because a lot of people cut it out, and they shouldn't do really. If things go wrong, they should show you how to correct that or go back in and do it again. We're all human. And there's nothing wrong with something going wrong when you're doing it, especially if like me, if you've done live videos, live demonstrations to a live audience and something goes wrong, you can't hide it. And same if you're teaching a class of students, which I've done, you can't hide it. So it's always been my mantra that I don't leave things like that out, just like to get these together. If something goes wrong, it goes wrong, and that's it. Put it right. You don't have to get them all exactly level, because if you look at a real flower, you probably find that they're not always as even as you think they are. They've just come undone. Didn't get that wound round as far as I thought I had. And then if you get your other bunch of stamens and put them in at the other side. Like that. And tape down. Now what you can do here if you want is just pull those stamens out a little bit and just bring them round your centre to even them out a little bit. They don't need to be too far out, they're just slightly away from the centre pistil. Pull that up. There we are. So that's your centre. Right, so we'll put that to one side. Next part is the flower. Now, so what I've done is I've coloured some pale pink paste here. Now there's two ways you can do this. If you've got one of these boards, just get those leaf cutters out of the way for the time being and give that a wipe over. So I've got some powder on there. That's the trouble, when you're using powder you have to be very careful, it flies everywhere. Just get that off there. Baby whites come in really handy for this sort of job. Or if you can't get it all off, put some white fat on and then rub it in and then wipe it off with a piece of kitchen roll. If you've got one of these cell boards, now there are other people that have copied these, but these were originated from Cell Crafts in York in the UK, and then Nicholas Lodge, who started up his business in the USA, took that over there because he used to work with Margaret, who was head of Cell Crafts. So that's where he got his idea from them, so it wasn't his idea. He might have been involved in it, but it wasn't basically his product to sell. Whether he got permission off of Margaret and I don't know. Right, so small piece of paste, and if you've got one of the cell boards, they have these three Mexican hat holes in it, and we want a small Mexican hat for the back. Now you've seen me do them before, but to do one as small as this is very fiddly, and my fingers are too big to do it that small. So press your paste into there, then get your rolling pin and roll out. Get it as thin as you can. Now bear in mind you need to roll it out enough to be able to cut out one of those flowers with this cutter. So if you just put that over your paste just to check, yeah, that'll fit. That's alright. Make sure you've got it thin enough, and then don't try and cut it out with it upside down like that. Take it off of your board and turn it over. Get your cutter and position your cutter over that little pimple in the centre. In here, because it's got a hole in the middle, I can see that, and this is ideal because with it being so small I can use this cutter on it. If it was a bigger Mexican hat I wouldn't be able to use this cutter because it wouldn't fit over the back. Then give it a good press. Cut out your flower. Now what you can do with these, if you want to make sure you've got a good cut, turn it over like that and then just rub your fingers over the top. and that finishes off your cut. You can take off your excess paste then, and then that should just flop out of the cutter like that. So then that needs to go onto your pad. And just get rid of that paste. I'm only going to do one of these flowers because the ones that are partially closed are done exactly the same way as the ones that are open anyway, so it's basically the same flower. Now with your medium ball tool, small end, go around the edge and thin off all your edges. I'm doing it with the pimple uppermost, although that's the back of the flower, for the simple reason that if you turn it over you can flatten your calyx, and it's not very big. If I turn it on its side there, you haven't got a lot there, so it would easily flatten out. Right, next job is to turn it over. Now before I do this, you can either put your stamens in now, or you can leave it until after the next step. When I did the other flowers, I did the other way around, but I want to make sure that it's fully central, so I'm going to put it in now. Then at least you've got something to hold onto, so make sure you get it into the middle of the pimple and pull that through. And bring that up your stem, up to the base of your stamens, there, like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rest each petal on my finger, and actually you're better off doing it the other way. I've done this wrong. There's a reason why I didn't put it on the stamens, but you've got the hole in it now, so it's ready. And just take that off of there. See what I mean about things going wrong? I forgot what I'd done the other day. 24 hours has gone by, you forget what you're doing. So what I'm going to do is get that with the pimple in between my fingers there, so it doesn't get squashed, and then with my trusty veining tool, with the point up in the air, vein the petals. Just turn it round for each one like that. Last two. Right, so the next step is, I'd forgotten I did, get some soft sponge like this. This is a bath sponge, obviously I haven't used it in the bath. I kept it just for this job. Now carefully place that down, forget you don't want to squash that back. And then get your ball tool and push it well down into the centre of each of the petals, which cups your petals. There we are, so that's those cupped. Right, now you can put your stamens in. What have I done with them? Did I put them back in there? Somewhere. Lost them. I'd ask anybody to tell me where, if they saw where I put it, but I can't do that, can I? Just bear with me a second while I just find my thing. I'll come back in a minute. Right, I'm back. I found my stamens. So again, we'll get the flower, and what I'm going to do, because I've already put a hole in it because I didn't do it before, I'm going to put some glue at the base of my stamens, just there, so that it make sure that it sticks. Then get the flower through the centre up to the base of the stamens, and then just get onto the hip at the back and just work that round and try and make sure that's nice and securely in. Now, depending on how you want your flower to be will depend on how you dry your petal. Now if you want to have quite a flat flower, then you can use a separator like this, or if you haven't got a separator, you can make it with some foil and pop that into the centre there, like that. Just have to play around with it just to get your petals just right. Find something that I can work with. Got a pair of tweezers here. Just pop that down into there. Just lift your petals out just to make sure that your petals are going to stay in place. Lift those out. The hole's a bit tight in this one. Hang on, I'll just get another one because I've got one with a bigger hole in. That one's not very... That's a better one. Right, so I've just lift my petals out. Just pop that down into there. That's better, like that. And then if you get a paper clip like this, and I've got one that's open, and then pop that underneath just to hold that in place so it doesn't slip down again, and then leave that to dry. Now if you want it to be more closed, if we just take that off of there, then you can pop it into one of these deeper ones. Just to get that so that it gets more closed. Where's my tweezers? Just get hold of that petal and pull that up like that. Just spend a bit of time playing around with it just to get it as you want it, and you can push it down to there, and when it starts to stiffen up, then you can hang it upside down to bring them more closer together, depending on how you want it to be. Before I do that, I'm going to put a calyx on this as well, so I'm just going to put that in some foam at the side there and let that dry. Now I've got quite a thin calyx cutter here. This is an old one I've had a few years ago. The nearest ones I can say is that if you can get hold of an FMM calyx cutter, they are very thin and they're ideal for something like this. So for that I need some pale green paste, which I've got some here. And I'm just going to roll this out flat, and don't want a hip or anything like that on the top on this. Just roll it out flat and quite thin. Just see if that fits on there. Yep, that fits on there. I'm just going to give a wipe over here because I've spilt some of my glue on here and I don't want it on my board. Get your cutter, cut that out. Now that's, with these fine ones you just have to be a little bit patient because sometimes they stick right in the little piece there, so just get something sharp in just to pull that out like that, so that pulls that away. It's one of the problems with plastic cutters. It can be a little bit of a pain like that. There we are. Got that. So then I want to get that to go onto your pad. This is why we charge a lot of money for sugar flowers on cakes, because they're very fiddly to do, and some of them can take quite a long time to do, and sometimes some of the smaller flowers are worse than some of the big ones. So bear that in mind when you're pricing things up. If you want to see about pricing things up, I have got a video on here. So I'm just going to thin those out like that. I'm just going to go run up the calyx with the ball tool rather than going either side, because it's so narrow. It's very difficult to do that now. Somewhere in there I've got a Dresden tool, and I've probably hidden it behind everything else. There it is. Couldn't find my plastic one, but I've got a metal one. It's actually a dental tool, is this. And then what you need to do then is go up the centre of each of the arms of the calyx to draw a line up it from the centre. Basically it's more or less sort of folding it in two. You probably won't be able to see that on camera because it's very small. I can't do close-ups with this camera, I'm afraid, because I tried to do it before and it just goes blurry, which makes it even harder to see. So get the flower that I've just done now and glue each of the arms of the calyx where you've just gone up the centre with your Dresden tool into the centre like that, and pull that up your wire. And try and get the calyx to go over where in between the petals if you can. Don't matter if you can't, but if you can, like that. And then it wants to go into whichever former you're going to use for that. So I'm going to put it into that former there. Where's me? I'm just going to push that down into there, like that. And then you can put that to dry then when you put your clip on your back, wherever I've put it. There it is. Then you can put that to dry into your foam then. Right, the leaves. I need some green paste out now because I'm going to do some buds and some leaves, but I'm only going to do one of each. I'm not going to do lots of them, otherwise we're going to be here for evermore just looking at one thing. So I'll just do the big leaf because it'd be easier for you to see it then. That's the largest one. I've used 3 different sizes of leaves. You can roll your paste a little bit thicker than you would do with your flour because leaves tend to be a little bit more fleshy anyway. And then I use my trusty rolling pin, cut your leaf out, I don't cut quite through with that, so if you can just try and find your position for your paste, you just sort of get it over your leaf. Find out where you cut it and give it another Right, so that's the leaf cut out. Leave that there because I need that again in a minute. And then you want a 28 gauge wire. See if I've got a spare one in there somewhere, saves me cutting another one. I've always got bits of wire all over the place here. No, that's too thick. That's a bit better, that'll do. So again, between your finger and your thumb, then get your wire to go up your paste. You can feel it going through your paste. That's too thin. What's that one? That might be a bit better. Yeah. I think that was a 32 or a 30 gauge wire that I just used then. So get it as far up your leaf as you can, because like I say, if you've got any breakages, if it's still on the wire, it's a lot easier to repair it if anything goes wrong. Right, get your on your pad, and what I'm going to do first of all is, they're quite feathered around the edge. As I say, this is not botanically the right shape, so forgive me for this, but I'm using what I can. And just give it a bit like what you when you're doing a rose calyx, same sort of thing. The leaf cutter that's actually recommended for this, if you've got one, a small one, is a sycamore leaf, which is slightly different shape to this. The points go more upright, which is more like the actual flower apparently. There we are, that's that done. Sorry, I need to leave it on there, don't I? So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and stretch these points a bit, because it's more elongated is the flower. So I'm just going to keep my finger on the wire there so it doesn't come off, and then just stretch it a bit like that, and then go around your edges to thin it off. Just pull those little bits out if you can that you've just feathered on there. Now then, the veiner that I'm using for it is it's actually a grape leaf veiner. Nearest one I could find that was the right shape and the right similar sort of veining. So this is what I'm going to use. I've had it in my box for ages and I've never made any grape leaves, so that was a good excuse to be able to use it. So into your veiner, try and get your points as lined up as you can, best you can. It won't be exact with this because of the shape of the veiner and the shape of the leaf. Give it a good press, like that. Then you can pinch that up the centre, and it sort of curves back a bit at the ends though. So if you pinch it up that way and curve it back a bit that way, and then, sorry, I've gone off camera again, I'm sorry. Pinch it up that way, then curve it down a bit that way and put it into your foam to dry like that. So I'll pop that into there. Right, so that's the leaves done. Buds next. Again, you only need a very thin wire, and what you need to do is tape that over with some of the pale green again, because the stems do show on these when we put it together. So if you start off by, I'll just bring the camera up a bit this way so when I'm doing anything like this you can see what I'm doing. It's more comfortable for me to sit more upright as well. So cover your wire. My fingers are a bit greasy, so they're slipping on it. There we are. Right, doesn't matter, I've got a little bit of white showing at the top because that's going to go inside the bud anyway. You should put a hook on the end, but unfortunately with these buds, because some of them are really tiny, if I show you some of the buds that I've made, I started off with that size there, up to that size. So you need an assortment of buds like this, and I found it better to just wet your wire with some glue, or if you're one of the ones that use egg white rather than glue. I don't use that because it goes off too quickly and you're wasting it. You're using tiny little bits at a time. People that are doing hundreds of flowers at a time, it's alright for them. So basically you need to make a small bud. Now that's about the size you would want for the small one. So if we make a bigger one so you can see what I'm doing, do one of the larger buds. Apparently if you roll it anti-clockwise you don't get cracks in it. Doesn't always work with me. So that could be an old wives' tale as well. Right, so I'm going to just dip the end of the wire into my glue and then into the paste like that, and then keep hold of the bottom, and I'm just going to work the top part here, and then if I get it on my hand, and then just roll the top end into a point. It's supposed to be more pointed than an ordinary bud, so if you can sort of get it between your finger and your thumb, just with your other hand try and make it a bit more pointed like that, and then when you've got your point then just roll it round just to get your shape like that. Okay, then turn it round on your hand, and then you want something with a sharp edge. You could use a scalpel if you wanted to. I couldn't find mine when I did all my buds, but I've just seen it somewhere when I was putting some tools away, and I can't find it now. I know it's in there somewhere. Oh, I use this tool. I have one with a sort of a sharp end on it, and I just drew the lines into it like that. You need about 5 lines into it, which represent the edges of your petals. Whoops, rolled over. Whoop, it's come off. That's the only trouble with not having a hook on it. That can happen. There we are. So once you've done that, you can set that to one side to dry. We'll get rid of that green paste. So that's all your components made. So we'll go on to colouring next. So I'm just going to turn off for a sec while I just go get my leaves. Right, so we'll get on to the colouring. I'm going to do the buds first of all. So I've done those in green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dust the top edge of the buds, just a tiny little bit of the that's a soft one, is that? I don't want that one. That one. Just the top edge with just a little bit of colour. Only a tiny little bit on the small ones, and the larger ones you can put a little bit more colour on. Oh, that's what I've already done. I'm sure I've got one on here that I haven't dusted. Yes, I have. Just a little blush of colour. It's mostly green, just starting to turn. Right, I'll just pop those to one side, and then we'll get on to the leaves. I thought I'd left some to colour. No, I was going to do the soft one, so I'll have to do the one that I've just made. So I've already dusted all my... I got a bit carried away when I was doing all my Blue Peter bit. So basically with the leaves, what you're going to do is get some of the same colour. We're only using 2 colours here, a green which I'm using, which is Rainforest, and Blackcurrant. And just give the tops of the points a little bit of burgundy, like that. It's got a bit flat now, but I can reshape that because it's still soft when I put it in there. Just put that back in there for a minute, and then the green, dust all over your leaf with that. Don't matter if you go a little bit over the burgundy, if you overlap. It's a bit like when you're doing the rose leaves. This is the way I did with them, putting burgundy on the edge and then green. Then turn it over and just give it a waft over the back with a bit of colour. Now they're not particularly shiny, aren't these? If you wanted to glaze them, I'm just going to put that back to shape because that's gone out of shape. You could glaze them with a quarter glaze, which basically is 1 part glaze to 3 parts isopropyl. I don't use white spirit for doing it, vodka or anything like that, because I find that when you've mixed it up it tends to separate, whereas if you make it with the isopropyl, which the glaze is made with in the first place, it mixes together a lot better. So for that I prefer that way. Right, then with the green you can dust the backs of your flowers with the green. I've all got carried away and done all my flowers, so I dusted the calyx with the same colour of green that I've done, but make sure, I think I used a smaller brush for that. I used one this size, and what you do is into your green powder and then get your brush so that it's narrow side down. If you look at it that way, we're going to brush this way rather than that way because we're not covering a big surface, so just dust it on very carefully on each of your petals like that. Right, get rid of that. Oh, leave that one out because we've got to, I'll get a flatter one for that. Now again, I've already coloured my flowers again, so I apologise for getting carried away, but I haven't done so much on the back on these. Again, I'm using a small brush and into the black currant. Start from the outer edge and brush inwards, leaving the pale pink showing at the base of your petals like that, and then onto the back of your flowers, just in the back like that. See, I did these yesterday and these petals are still a little bit soft, they're still a bit movable, so if you haven't got them in the position you want them to be in summertime they probably dry a lot quicker, but at this time of year, with it being winter time, still being in January, they haven't dried as much, so they're still, I can still move them around a bit. And this is the vegan flower paste that I've got on my video on with that, on how to make it. I quite like working with it, and it's a lot cheaper to make than making it with egg white as well, because you're not wasting egg yolks unless you're doing some baking. And because I live on my own, I don't do a lot of baking these days, because if I do, I'll sit and eat it. Not good for my system or staying slim, is it? Right, so that's those done. So you've done the buds, we've done the leaves, we've done the flowers, so now we can start to assemble them. So I'm just going to get that cutter out of the way. I'm going to do some more tape because I haven't got enough there. So I found where I've put my roller tape. I've got some over there. I might have some already cut. No. Can't find the roller tape, and I've just brought it up. There's 2 bits there anyway, so we might get away with some of this. So you get all your flowers together and your buds and your leaves ready to assemble. Now they're going to all go together in groups. So I get all my flowers down. I might have more here than I need, but we'll just see. It depends on how they look when you're putting them together. I mean, obviously if you're making a spray for somebody, you've probably done it before and you've probably got a good idea on what you want to do. Because if somebody's already done it beforehand, it's easier to work out, isn't it? When it comes to the leaves, when you're making the leaves, by the way, I didn't point this out, do them in pairs because they go together in pairs. So it's 2 by 2 with your leaves. So whatever sizes you're doing, you want multiples of 2 for each lot of leaves you're going to do. So there I've got 2 of those, those medium ones, and I've got 4 small ones here and 2 big ones to go at the bottom. Right, so to put them together, I'm going to start off with a sort of a more closed flower near the top, and I'm going to put them together into groups of 3, so there'll be a flower and then a couple of buds. So they'll be in 3s, but there'll be 1 flower and a couple of buds. So I'm going to put 2 different size buds in with the flowers. So I'm going to put a small one and a medium sized one together, keeping those all together. What you can do if you wanted to, if you've got loads of tape out, which I haven't got, you could do these all into little sprays before you put them together and do it that way if you find that easier. Sometimes that saves time as well, because once you've done it you can sort out how your flowers are going to go, and then you can add on as you go along. Now underneath there, I'm just going to come up a bit with my tape a bit. Under there I'm going to put in a couple of leaves, bringing the stems right into the stem, because this is going to be the top one in this spray. I'm going to do 2 sprays like this, so I'll do them first. So 2 leaves in there, and I'm just going to tape down a bit like that. So they'll come out like that, if you can see that. Then I'm going to get another one that's a closed one, that one, and I'm going to do the same thing on that. So start my tape off under that, wrong side. This is the fascinating part, when everything starts coming together and you're seeing it all grow together. So we've got a sort of a medium bud there and a small bud, so we'll put those 2 together. It seems as though when the way that they grow, you have a flower and then you've got buds that follow on, so as that dies off another flower opens, which these buds are swelled by then for that dying off, ready to open for the next flower. That's how you get the longevity of some of the flowers. And as we all know, the cultivated flowers that we've got all start off from something like this. Where's my small leaves? There's one. So whatever cultivated flowers you've got in your garden will have been bred from a wild version of that flower, because before we start messing about with nature, that's how they grew. We don't always know where they've come from, but some of them we do. Some are more common than others. Right, so we'll take that down to there, open those leaves out, bring those buds out a little bit. So that's another one ready to go. So I'll just put that up there. Then what I can do now is I can take the first one that I did and I can start adding some more into it now. So I'll put another flower in there and another couple of buds. So we'll have a small one and a bigger one. And then I put a couple of leaves in, so we're going to go for the medium sized leaves now. suppose you could say that leaves are quite insignificant because they act like a sort of a calyx between each of the sprays, for want of a better way of putting it. Put those out. You can pull those down if they're not in tight. It's one way of making sure they don't move around. So we can bring that flower out a bit that way. Bring those buds out that way. Go a bit further down and I'll put a more open flower in. Another couple of buds. This time I'm going to put some bigger ones in. I like to put the buds in behind the flower so that the flower's the main thing, but you can see that there are buds behind ready to open. And then put in another couple of leaves. So what I'm going to do, because I haven't got any quarter glaze made up, I shall just steam all the lot together to set all the colours, because you'd steam the flowers anyway, and it's a lot easier to steam them if you've got the spray already put together. Now I'm going to tape down to the bottom with this, because I'm going to finish that one off now. So what I'm going to do now, bring those buds out a bit so the leaf can come down there behind it. I'm just going to pop that one down and then I'm going to go back to the other spray. Some more tape. Oh, it looks like it's going to work out. Shouldn't say anything here, should I? That's when things start going wrong, when you start jumping to conclusions. So we'll put that one in. Yeah, that's quite a close one, is that? Bring that down there and put a small and a larger bud in with that. And a couple of leaves. Open those out, pull those buds out a bit. I'm going to tape down with that. There we are to there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this one out. I'm going to add this in underneath that one. So I'm going to bring those together. And I'm going to add in a flower there. Which one we're going to use? That one's lost a petal, so we'll use this one. I'm just going to bend that out so I don't knock any petals off of it. What I'm going to do is, because I've got three lots together and it's difficult to handle them here, I'm going to tape down with that. just to make sure they stay together. Oops. And then just pull that down into that. That's it. Before I put the buds and that in, because I can come back up and put those in afterwards. Just open my... Trouble is, you get your tape folded over like this. It probably happened to most of you. Just be very careful and just reopen that out. Just slide your nail down it, and I can go back in and put in. Whoops, wrong side. Helps if you get the sticky side inwards. And I've lost a petal off, leaf off somewhere. When you get them all in together, you can't tell if a leaf's fallen off. I'll find it afterwards. And then we want a couple of buds to go in there. And then the large leaves going underneath there. Just make sure you pull your wires in to make sure that everything's nice and tight in. Stops them from moving around once you've got them in position. And tape right that down to the bottom. Once you've got everything in, then you can play around with it then to get everything just as you want it to be. Bring those buds out with them. Those are a little bit further out there at the front. Then you can play around with your other pieces then. You can bend your wires and twist them around. If you've got a pair of tweezers, it's a good idea to be able to get in with them. Either tweezers or long nose pliers are another good idea. Come in very handy in cake decorating for moving things around, rather than risking breaking them with your fingers. And you can open them all out. There we are. Just give them a bit of movement so they'll look more natural then. So there we are. That's my woodland, sorry, I've lost my page there. I've forgotten what I was doing. Wood crane's bill. Oh, I'm getting old, things are going wrong and my memory's going. I can get away with saying that because that's me. So what I would do with that then is to steam it. I'll just see if I haven't got any water in there, so I can't steam it, otherwise I put my steamer on and do it. But I will be posting this on Facebook later on in the groups that I put it on, so you'll be able to see the finished spray altogether. So that's my spray of wood crane's bill. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and come back and see me for the next videos that I do. If you've got any comments about anything that you'd like to see me do, or any questions about anything that I've done in the video, then leave them in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you like the videos. So take care, see you soon, stay safe.